and welcoming Father David Wong from Immaculate Conception Church.
Your Honor, Mayor Boulay, Honorable City Council members, distinguished guests, all gathered here, it is my honor and pleasure to offer this opening invocation for tonight's meeting. Let us begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, Heavenly Father, you have created all things and ordered them to the good, and created man in your own image and likeness, to love and serve you in this life, so as to be with you in heaven in the life to come. We ask you to send forth your Holy Spirit upon these city council members and all gathered here, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of knowledge and of good counsel, the spirit of fortitude, that they may know and work to serve the common good. Instill in them a spirit of true service, that they may be good servants of our city and her residents, especially the poor and the needy and those less fortunate among us. May the work they do here this evening be pleasing to you, O God, as they serve the people of our city. We ask all of this, Heavenly Father, through your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Can you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Remain standing, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We all be seated. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Yes. Councilor Bouchard. Here. Mayor Boulay. Sorry.
Still here.
Councilor Brown.
Here.
Councilor Champlin.
Here.
Councilor Fennessy.
Present.
Councilor Grady Six. Here. Councilor Keach.
Here.
Councilor Kretovic.
Here.
Councilor Matson.
Here.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Excused.
Councilor McNamara.
Here.
Councilor Nyan.
Present.
Councilor Pierce.
Here.
Councilor Rice-Hawkins.
Here.
And Councilor Todd.
Here. Well, good to see everybody. Tonight we have before us the minutes of February 13th, 2023. Before us, is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Motion made, second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Councilor Brown.
Yes, I have corrections that I'd like to make on pages 2 to 13, item 17. If it pleases the council, I will read my changes and I can submit them to the city clerk. I have reduced the words, the number of words. Councilor Brown referenced the vendor Circle Works, who she contacted, which is utilized by Human Resources to achieve the aforementioned goals as mentioned on page 13 of the report. Councilor Brown described learning more about Circle Works, which was funded last budget cycle for Human Resources recruitment process, and suggested councilors could use the free webinars to diversify Concord boards, committees, and commissions. Councilor Brown pointed out that diverse representation would make our city even better, and related this to lights at Keach Park. Councilor Brown moved to form an ad hoc committee of councilors and community members to conduct outreach and diversify city boards, committees, and commissions. Human Resources and Labor Relations Director Johnston spoke to clarify information about Circle Works and described the detailed monthly report from Circle Works and geographical locations, explaining that Circle Works does not limit job postings to within the city of Concord. The motion was duly seconded and failed on a voice vote. Councilors Champlin and Fennessy stated support for a committee on diversity, but preferred to wait for the mayor's upcoming diversity, equity, and inclusion proposal. Councilor Grady Sexton confirmed with the mayor that his proposal would be available next month, which he stated would be more comprehensive. City Manager Espel reminded members of council about the non-interference of council with management prerogatives per council rules in the city charter. Councilor Kretovic moved approve the quarterly status report. Councilor Rice-Hawkins called for a roll call vote. The motion was duly seconded and passed with no dissenting votes.
Thank you. Is there a second to the amendment to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and second to amend as read by Councilor Brown. Is there any discussion? I'll be honest with you, it's not the quite way I remember it. I think the minutes actually satisfy all of the statutes and the RSAs, and I think capture the essence of what was there.
You-
So that's my opinion. I'll be voting no. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Council Brown?
Your Honor, I respectfully disagree. I did watch the council minutes, or I watched the video of council repeatedly to ensure that it was accurate, and I felt that the minutes didn't reflect that I was emphasizing free webinars and the discussion of the upcoming committee proposal.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Council Credit?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's been a month. I don't recall what exactly was in the city manager's quarterly status report, but I don't believe any of that was. And so I think that there were many things that were discussed in that conversation, and not all of it was actually related to the quarterly status report. So I'm fine with the minutes as they are.
Okay, questions on the amendment? Or ready for the question on the amendment? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion defeated. The motion is before us to adopt the minutes. Is there any other suggested changes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
The motion is adopted. Tonight, we have our consent agenda before us. Before I take a motion on the consent agenda, I'll simply just recognize Council Brown recused himself from items 13, 14, and 17. Council Nye recused himself from item 13 and 14, and I recuse myself from items 7, 8, and 9. With that, can we get a motion on the consent agenda?
Move approval?
Second. Motion made, second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Anybody want to remove anything? Seeing none, nothing was removed, so seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. That takes us this evening to our public hearings. Madam Clerk, item 26A, please.
Yes, it's a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with United Therapeutics Corporation concerning Development Zone 3D at the Concord Municipal Airport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Honourable members of the council, I've asked Deputy City Manager Walsh to come forward and do a presentation on this.
Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. So before you tonight, you have a proposed lease agreement between the city and United Therapeutics Corporation for 2.88 acres of land, raw land at the Concord Airport known as Development Zone 3D. The parcel is located near the Army Air National Guard hangar, which is on the inside of the fence at the airport. There's a map that's inside, that's included as your part of your packet. You can take a look at that. The lease follows a November 2022 letter of intent between the city and United Therapeutics Corporation regarding this particular transaction. A little bit about United Therapeutics. So first and foremost, they're founded in 1996. The CEO founded it to cure a rare life-threatening disease suffered by his daughter, or her daughter, I should say. It's one of the world's premier biotech companies. It's got 950 employees. Its earnings in 2022 were just under $2 billion. It has assets of around $5 billion. It's a publicly traded corporation with a market cap that fluctuates between 10 and 12 billion, depending on where the market is. They specialize in rare diseases, pulmonary hypertension, and other, which is an issue with lungs and blood pressure, as well as other forms of cancer. They are headquartered in Silver Springs, Maryland, but they have offices throughout the eastern seaboard, including Quebec and in Manchester, New Hampshire. In Manchester, they have an R&D facility which is specializing in manufacturing organs, primarily lungs. They have a strong progressive corporate culture regarding social and environmental issues and sustainability. Their resources are impressive. Its mission, corporate culture, and values are inspiring. The use is as follows. It's a 36,000 square foot corporate aircraft hangar. Because of their commitment to sustainability, this hangar is going to be built out of glulam timber instead of steel, which adds cost. It will house 4 to 5 aircraft. It's a combination of fixed wing jets and turboprop planes and helicopters. The project also includes improvements to our abandoned runway 1230, which serves as a taxiway to access the hangar, as well as other utilities in the area. There is an updated lease agreement that was provided as part of your packet. Again, they're leasing Development Zone 3D. It's about 125,000 square feet, or just under 3 acres. This provides them room for future expansion beyond the 36,000 square foot hangar they're proposing. The initial lease term is for 20 years, but they also have the ability to do 4 5-year renewals for a total of 40 years combined. The rent is 35 cents a square foot. That's based on a market study that's comparable to what is paid at Pease Airport over in Newington and in Portsmouth. The lease rate increases 3% annually, Property taxes will be paid directly by the tenant separately from rent, so the taxes are above and beyond the rent. The updated lease agreement that you have in your packet has a couple of things in it. First, it establishes a completion date of October 31st, 2024 for the project. It modifies certain financial surety requirements for UTC's general contractor who will be building this project. And instead, United Therapeutics is providing a financial bond to guarantee that the project will be completed. The financial benefits to the city are as follows. First year's rent, which will be due on this April 1st, is $43,871. Total rent over the initial 20-year term is $1,178,000. If the lease runs for the full 40 years, rent to the city is $3.3 million. All that goes to the airport because it's a special revenue fund. Additionally, the property taxes for the project are projected to be somewhere between $102,000 and $141,000 annually. And I would emphasize that there is zero, absolutely zero financial support from the city that's going towards this project. The project is currently in the permitting process. They are going to be before the planning board on this Wednesday night, March 15th. They are in the process of securing various state and federal permit approvals. We don't anticipate any problems with those, and construction will start this spring. The economic development advantages or benefits to the community for this project are significant in addition to the financial I just mentioned. The first is this helps advance the city's long-standing goal of bringing biotech or technology companies to Concord. So this helps advance that goal that's been in place for 2 decades. Their presence at the airport could make Concord an attractive option to United Therapeutics as it looks to grow in the future. So if they look to move out of Manchester or to bring more activity to New Hampshire, proximity to the hangar could be very important and beneficial for Concord. Lastly, this project will raise the profile of Concord Airport in the aviation community as well as the biotech community, and we're hoping it will serve as a catalyst for additional aviation-based development at the airport. I would conclude by saying that it's been a complete joy to work with United Therapeutics, their staff, their legal counsel, their contractor, the design team. They've all been exceptional professionals to deal with, and they will be an excellent addition to our community, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councilor Fennessy?
Thank you. I noticed in the revised lease in Article 12, it talks about the bonds, and it indicated that the form of terms and amount of the completion bond will be acceptable to the lessor. And my question was, what do we anticipate the form of the bond to be that they're going to provide, and what do we expect that the amount of it will be? Do you have any sense?
So the city solicitor has been involved in that, as have I. We're anticipating that the amount of the bond will be for the full estimated construction cost of the project, which is approximately $20 million. It's a very expensive building. The insurance company is involved, which is I believe it was actually Chubb that was involved in working with us on this. I don't know if it's going to be a letter of credit or if it's going to be a surety through their their insurance company. At this point, it looks like it's surety through the insurance company. But it's essentially a $20 million surety to ensure that the project's completed. If it's not completed, the city will have the ability to call the surety to either complete the project or tear it down and restore the property back to its original condition.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Champ?
Thank you. Well, if it's going to be insured by Chubb, it's going to be high premiums and high quality. Briefly, could you share any insights as to why it is that United Therapeutics, decided to build their hangar here rather than, say, in Manchester, where they have?
Manchester has become very difficult to get into because of the commercial aviation component at Manchester. So Concord is a general aviation airport. So Manchester has been slowly discouraging general aviation activities such as these there. So they've decided to come to Concord because of that.
So do you think there might be any other opportunities for us created by that situation?
Yes. In fact, approximately a year ago, Councilor Bouchard and the Airport Advisory Committee worked with staff to issue a request for interest for the airport for our development zones that are up there, knowing that things are changing in the aviation industry regionally. We've gotten a lot of interest. United Therapeutics was really first to the table and was a very sound prospect, so we started there. We're working with one other partner in earnest right now, or potential partner in earnest, another development zone at the airport, and there are a couple other folks that are in the wings, no pun intended, that are also out there. So we're getting good interest, which if it all comes together would be amazing. And we're working through them as we have the capability to work through them.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
At this point, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is anybody wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, item 26B, please.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227A.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager.
Council and Mr. Mayor, you, as you know, exemptions or deductions from assessed values prior to calculating property taxes. Presently, the asset threshold for both single and married applicants is $98,000, not including the value of the applicant's primary residence. The current income thresholds are, for single are $37,300 and married $53,300. The exemptions amounts are for age 65 to 74 is $80,000, 75 to 79 is $131,000, and ages 80 and older is $223,000. After discussion, the committee recommended to increase the income and asset thresholds. The recommendation is to increase the income level from $37,300 to $39,000 for single applicants, and from $53,300 to $55,300 for married applicants, and to increase the asset limit from $98,000 to $100,000 for both single and married applicants. No other changes were recommended.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the measure?
Yes, thank you. I have a question. If there is two other, let's say on the deed, there are two other people who are not elderly that are on the deed, how is that then assessed? For example, if a woman, an elderly woman, say in her 90s, has her two children on the deed and does not have a life estate.
Oh, does not own it?
She lists them as co-owners.
So she is not an owner?
She is listed as an owner. It lists three owners, herself and her two adult children.
I don't know the answer to that question. That'd be something that they should ask the city assessor.
Any further questions? Seeing none. All right, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, item 26C, please.
It's a report from the Director of Real Estate Assessments recommending the city manager be authorized to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement between the City of Concord and Briar Hydro Associates.
Mr. Manager.
And members of the council, this pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes agreement, would be for 1 year, beginning April 1st of 2023, ending March 31st, 2024. The tax year pilot for the city shall be $225,000. The previous payment in lieu of taxes minimum payment was $180,000. I'm sorry.
Any questions of the manager? All right, seeing none, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. And anyone wishing to testify?
I'm here to represent Briar Hydro, but I don't have anything to say unless you all have any questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you very much. That was a great job. Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, item 26D, please.
It's a report from the Director of Real Estate Assessments requesting the city manager be authorized to renew the voluntary payment in lieu of taxes agreement between Fellowship Housing Opportunities and the City of Concord.
Mr. Manager.
The other members of the council, if approved, the payment in lieu of taxes payment will begin on April 1st, 2023, and on March 31st, 2024. Previously, we had done these for multiple years, but because of, at the request of Fellowship Housing, we'll be doing them for 1 year at a time.
Questions? Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I just had a question, and this may not be something that you have immediately at your fingertips, but have we noticed any sort of abundance of service calls to any of these properties, or is it generally in line with our expectations?
It's been generally in line.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, item 26E, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $150,809.22 as a transfer to the opioid abatement reserve and accepting the sum of $150,809.22 in litigation settlement funds for this purpose.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Members of the council, in October, the city received a letter from the New Hampshire Attorney General's office regarding the opioid litigation settlement fund distribution pursuant to RSA 126A 83-2. As part of the settlement, the city is scheduled to receive the amount $150,809.22, and you're simply accepting those monies and putting them into a reserve account.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Council Fennessy.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Are there any restrictions on what we can do with those funds?
We're looking at those now as they come in, because as you know, many of these are settlements with individual companies. And for example, there was just an announcement that the U.S. Attorney General's office entered into an agreement with 5 or 6 different companies for well over $10 billion. But that is spread around the country, and then each state gets a section, and then each community that's involved in this gets a piece. So we're going to look at each piece of that as they come in and see what restrictions are, and then before we come to you and say, here are some ideas on what to do with the dollars.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify on this item? Seeing none, hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, item 26F, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $34,000 in the Downtown Complete Streets Improvement Project to purchase concrete barriers to facilitate outdoor dining activities in on-street parking spaces, and authorizing the use of $34,000 from the Economic Development Reserve for this purpose.
Mr. Manager.
Now, members of the council, in your reports, you see there's layout plans for each of the entities that are interested, and you also have a supplemental report for how the $34,000 would be used. If you look at the supplemental report, you'll see the impact on the parking in the area. And as you know, there's a requirement of the applicants to work with their neighbors to make sure that it works for everybody. There's also a new item is, if we follow the New Hampshire Department of Transportation guidelines, they recommend that crash barrels be installed around the edges, the ends of these. Not that when you go around most of the country or that you see these, but this is something that DOT has recommended as part of their crash zone requirements. And so given that, to be able to afford those barrels, there's been a redoing of how the dollars would be used. So it'd be $18,000 to purchase the barriers, $6,000 to install and remove them, which would be a reoccurring annual cost. There'd be $4,000 to rent and install the barrels themselves along the barriers, and then $6,000 for beautification of the barricades and the crash barrels. And that is really the work, a lot of the work done by the committee that was looking at improving outdoor dining in downtown.
Council Fennessy.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I'm going to make an assumption that if we're going to rent these bright yellow crash barrels, we're not going to be able to do anything to beautify them. Is that correct?
I think they're as beautiful as they're going to be, unfortunately.
Thank you.
As beautiful as a rubber duck.
Oh, Mr. Manager, there's nothing says we have to do the barrels, right?
That's correct. That was really us taking a look at the guidelines that DOT uses for their areas where they put out these types of these concrete structures, and saying this is what they recommend to do. Again, I think as you drive around a state or New England, you're going to be hard pressed to find everybody doing everything the same way. It's all going to be based on the unique circumstances of areas of downtown.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Anyone wish to testify on this item? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, mayors, members of the city council, city manager, city clerk. I'm Roy Schweiker, and I see this as yet another thing of why is the taxpayers of the city paying for things that benefit a few businesses downtown? I think that if these are really necessary, there's no reason why the businesses that use them shouldn't be paying the full cost of them. In particular, paying the $6,000, it used to be $10,000 for decorating them. If they have to be decorated, why not let each facility decorate them as they please. It's only paint, and if somebody else winds up with it later, they can repaint it. But, you know, this is just utterly ridiculous. And more importantly, I wonder why we still have outdoor dining. I mean, we have a zoning ordinance that tries to encourage all the buildings to be tight up against the sidewalk, and then we have to give them space in the street because the building's so tight against the sidewalk. Why aren't we encouraging the buildings to be set back so they can have their outdoor dining on their own land instead of renting rare space in the city? I think that prior to the pandemic, we had a shortage of parking spaces on Main Street already. So dedicating them to use for outdoor dining, which is used only a mere fraction of the typical day, is a foolish waste of the space. So I don't see why we're encouraging it. I think that it's gonna go away sooner or later due to the demand for those spaces. And so here we're spending however much it is to buy these things, which hopefully will have some use for us after they're done if we're paying for them. I can't imagine why it costs $6,000 to install 18 barriers. One would think the city could send their tree crane down there, put them on a flatbed, and be gone for far less than that. So, you know, this whole thing is just, you know, how much money can we waste in one area downtown? And that's the way I see this whole thing. Let the restaurants put up these barriers if they want, and if they don't, then fine. They don't have to have them. And if the state thinks they can tell us to have them, well, they can tell the restaurant to have them. And while I'm talking about parking spaces downtown, many of you may remember that when we did the big parking study downtown, everybody said that parking spaces on Main Street should be more expensive than parking spaces elsewhere because they are more in demand. That was supposed to happen, but no. First we had the downtown construction, so give the guys a break. Let's, you know, not charge them extra now. Then we had the pandemic. Well, those people are suffering. Let's give them a break. Let's not charge them now. I think it's about time that the downtown businesses and users start paying their fair share of the expenses. We're using tax revenue to subsidize garages, which are free on weekends, and making people in neighborhoods pay to park in front of their house on weekends. That isn't right. We need to let the downtown start paying more of their true expenses. We need to raise the parking fee on Main Street, and we need to make them pay for their own Jersey barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, appreciate you taking time. Anyone else wish to testify? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and Madam Clerk, item 26G, please.
It's a resolution accepting the terms of both the 2020 and a 2021 Critical Infrastructure Water-Related Catastrophe Equipment Grant, appropriating the sum of $25,000 in the Fire New Hampshire Department of Safety Grants and Donations Project for the purchase of water rescue and related equipment, and accepting the sum of $25,000 in New Hampshire Department of Safety State Homeland Security Program funding for this purpose.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, there are no matching funds required.
Well done. Any questions for the manager? Seeing none, it's time. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Takes us to our action phase. Madam Clerk, item 27, please.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease agreement with United Therapeutics Corporation concerning Development Zone 3D at the Concord Municipal Airport.
Move approval.
Second. Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to thank staff and the Airport Advisory Committee and Councilor Mattson, who also serves on the Airport Advisory Committee, for all their work and groundwork looking to get users into the airport that will be beneficial not only to the city of Concord, but not disruptive to the area and the residents. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council Chamberlain, Council President.
Thanks, Your Honor. I just wanted to say, add my thanks to the Airport Advisory Committee and to the staff. This is a great opportunity. I hope we can leverage the situation down at the Manchester Airport that Mr. Walsh mentioned in order to attract more development at the airport, but also to use this as a, hopefully as a way to leverage our airport to bring in more of these industries into Concord. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilor Hezzy?
Thank you. I echo the comments from Councilor Bouchard and Councilor Champlin, and I would just encourage Mr. Walsh and city staff that I think, getting a hangar at the airport is the first step, but the next step really should be trying to encourage these companies to relocate to our fine city and making sure that we've got appropriate areas in which that they can both build and expand. And to the extent that we need to reevaluate some of our industrial areas and opportunity corridors to be able to do that, we should be looking to do that proactively rather than reactively.
Anyone else? I just want to say, this is one of those moments where after you've talked about something for 2 decades and talked about economic development, and some people just like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, this is economic development. This is, we've talked about the airport as being kind of a hidden gem that, it's not been utilized a long time. We've not made investments there. And I think, this is one of those things where when you have an airport, it attracts this economic activity, and as it has been said earlier, hopefully it will then grow and to turn into further tax base, et cetera. But, this is why we make investments into our community to see the return, and I think the airport's a great example, and everybody who was mentioned earlier gets a lot of credit for that, so congratulations. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion been seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 28, please.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227A.
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Are you old enough to have to exempt yourself from this? Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
I was thinking about Council.
I've been waiting for that line all night long, all right?
No.
Excuse me?
Slowly. I go to
Slowly I
Councilor
turn.
Champlin when I need advice on these.
All right. So with that, we have motions made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion is adopted. Item 29, please.
It's a report from the Director of Real Estate Assessments recommending the city manager be authorized to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement between the city and Briar Hydro Associates.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
I just want to say it's been great working with Madeline. She's done a great job there, and we look forward to future agreements. Again, this is a 1-year agreement, and we think there's going to be multiple-year agreements coming up, but she's been great to work with.
Thank you.
Since you showed up, I think I said something.
Thanks for giving me a shout out.
Yeah.
Coming here all over.
All right, with that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it, motion is adopted. Item 30, please.
It's a report from the Director of Real Estate Assessments requesting the city manager be authorized to renew the voluntary payment in lieu of taxes agreement between Fellowship Housing Opportunities and the city of Concord.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 31, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $150,809.22 as a transfer to the opioid abatement reserve and accepting the sum of $150,809.22 in litigation settlement funds for this purpose.
Move approval. Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Have received necessary 2/3, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 32, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $34,000 in the Downtown Complete Streets Improvement Project to purchase concrete barriers to facilitate outdoor dining activities in on-street parking spaces and authorizing the use of $34,000 from the Economic Development Reserve for this purpose.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? We'll start this way, and we'll go with Councilor Pierce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would just add that when our committee looked at this, whether or not to replace the water-filled barriers with concrete, given the accident that happened this past year, we looked at this more as a issue of public safety rather than making a nice barrier for the restaurant. So we understood the expense behind it, but at the end of the day, the committee felt this was public safety above everything else, so I leave it at that.
Councilor Brennan?
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to express my appreciation to the committee for all their fine work that they've done on this. And I know it's been many meetings that you have gotten together to discuss this. Beyond this, when it came time for the pandemic and our restaurants were starting to come out of that and be able to go outside, I can't forget the commitment of this community, that what we saw in Rethinking Main Street, in those renderings that we had of our downtown, was exactly that, converting downtown parking into outdoor dining and being adaptable and flexible to the space that belongs to all of us. And I think it was because of that that we came out of this ahead of the curve for other communities. And it's communities like Portsmouth that are taking the lead from Concord. I'm so proud that we were able to pivot like that for our downtown businesses. And I'm really looking forward to the beautification efforts that go with the concrete barriers and whatever the yellow ducks are that we need to have in place in order to protect people, because this is fantastic and this is exactly the type of community I want to be a part of. Thank you.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. I agree with everything that Councilor Kretovic said there, except I am not a fan of these crash barrels, and I don't know that we need to do anything, because I think we're really handling the appropriation, but the report does suggest that a portion of these funds would be used to install these crash barrels, which would be a continuing expense, and I would prefer to avoid the crash barrels.
Does it say May?
It says the $34,000 budget will be adjusted as follows. And then it identifies as C, 4,000 to rent/install crash barrels. So,
Okay, that's why I asked the question earlier about don't have to, and the clear answer was no, we do not have to. That's why I thought it was optional, but maybe I'm wrong.
well, I think it's probably optional, but in the report, it indicates that the money is going to be used for that. So I guess I would suggest perhaps a friendly amendment to provide discretion as to whether or not to purchase the crash barrels.
I'm all for that, because I assumed that anyways, but over here. go ahead.
Is that an amendment, or are we waiting for that action phase?
He made a motion, if you want to second it.
I would second that amendment.
Want to speak to it?
I would like to speak to it. I'm all about public safety, but and I'm not a traffic engineer, obviously, but as I look at that number of barrels, it seems, I'm not sure it's related to the actual speeds on Main Street. It seems like the same number of barrels appear on an interstate exit ramp. So I'd like to, I second the amendment, and I'll be voting in favor if that amendment passes.
Councilor Chairman, do you want to speak to the amendment or the original motion?
I am going to speak to the original motion, although Councilor Fennessy got a jump on me on making the motion, so I'll move the motion.
No.
Unless
See if
there's-
anybody else want to say anything first. Anybody else want to share?
Just on behalf of the committee, we never talked about barrels, so whatever happens, happens, and
This
I'm in
your
favor of no
administration thing,
barrels.
wasn't it? All right, we have a motion before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, have it. Okay, so we're back to the original motion. Councilor Chairman.
Thanks, Your Honor. I just wanted to echo what's been said about the good work of the ad hoc sidewalk street dining committee. And also, I wanted to respond to what Mr. Schweiker said. It's really evident that a lot of things changed during COVID. A lot of restaurants started looking for ways to have people dine outside because of the perceived safety, increased safety in that, as Councilor Kretovic mentioned. And I think we did get the jump on that. However, I think a lot of people determined that they liked dining outside. And this speaks to the vision of this body in terms of the Complete Street Project and the revamp of Main Street. We had the sidewalk space available. Also, it's my understanding that we now have fees involved, fees that are attached to the use of that space, which speaks to Mr. Schweiker's point. I know that he's left, but he probably was watching on TV. But also, you know, it's evident that if you go to any major city, Councilor Kretovic mentioned Portsmouth, you can go to Boston, you can go to Hartford, outdoor dining, use of parking spaces to expand outdoor dining is very, very popular. And so I think this is one step where the city of Concord has been ahead of the curve, is making sure that we're still riding on the crest of the wave So I very strongly support this. And I also want to, again, mention that I think it was very wise to include funds to beautify. There needs to be consistent beautification. That's one of the keys to these endeavors that are successful. You don't want everybody doing different things in slapdash. You want some nice, attractive uniformity. So kudos to the committee, kudos to the city management. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have received the necessary two-thirds, motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 33, please.
It's a resolution accepting the terms of both a 2020 and a 2021 Critical Infrastructure Water-Related Catastrophe Equipment Grant, appropriating the sum of $25,000 in the Fire New Hampshire Department of Safety Grants and Donations Project for the purchase of water rescue and related equipment, and accepting the sum of $25,000 in New Hampshire Department of Safety State Homeland Security Program funding for this purpose.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion made second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Received necessary two-thirds, motion is adopted. That completes our public hearings this evening. We have no reports. New business. I have one item for new business. We'll pass it that way. Don't take it. Don't take it. No, you're going to be short one.
Oh.
Here, that's an additional one.
Okay.
They're going?
There you go.
You're good. You're good. You took one, you should have.
Oh,
No, no,
I'll share.
I passed it.
Oh, I can't have it. I don't know.
Short one. There you go. Oh, there's one more coming. Go that way.
Everybody got one?
Everybody's got one on this side.
All right, cool. Everybody got one? Okay, so at the last meeting, we talked about putting together a committee dealing with diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. I had said that I wasn't ready when it wasn't, so I wanted to share this all with you this evening. And for purposes, so everybody can be under the same thing, what I've simply done is try to put together a mission, goals, deliverables, and then establish a committee. So the mission, to create and sustain an inclusive process for public engagement so that all Concord residents feel a sense of belonging and can authentically participate in the decision-making process that impacts their lives. So we tried to be a general broad brush, I think, fairly inclusive comment. The goals, identify those characteristics that make Concord more welcoming, inclusive, just and equitable place where all residents feel civically empowered with a sense of belonging. Develop approaches and initiatives that will ensure the protection and promotion of those characteristics. And establish a model of protocol for community conversations that engage all Concord citizens, such that the city and its committees can follow the practice set forth for future projects. So, deliverables. A series of facilitated conversations around the city to engage marginalized voices, utilizing a team of trained facilitators, and I'm going to come back and talk about that, able to assist in running conversations. Protocol for outreach to hard-to-reach communities, including a list of contacts for leaders within the groups who are willing to come together to discuss current topics. A proposal to city officials, including the city's public information officer, on how to better harness digital and other relevant tools to reach all citizens. So this is merely a kind of the bones of something. It is not complete by any means. There has to be a lot more added to this, but in terms of a structure, this was the start. One of the key things is to have a facilitated conversations, but I think what I learned as I talked to folks in the community is that there really needs to be an outside consultant, if you will, if we're going to be successful and to do this. And I think we create a relationship with some sort of consultant to help us facilitate those conversations, but more so to actually come up with deliverables that will be sustainable long-term. And I think, that's going to take some resources, and to be completely frank, I'll be coming back to the council to ask for those resources. But number two, this can't be a one-off. It's not the next month we're going to do this, next 2 months, whatever, 6 months. I mean, I think this has to be a 1 to 2 year commitment so that we institutionalize the changes as we bring them forth. I put together a committee made up of 3 people that are simply there to work with some outside vendor to put together a program and such to bring back to the council to talk about at the budget time or before. And so I thought this would be something to start the conversation, but it was meant to be a kind of a holistic, inclusive process to and this was to be to start the conversation. I probably missed a lot of things, but I'll start with that. Anybody? Councilor Fennessy?
Thank you. So thank you for providing this proposal to us. I'm very happy to have something concrete to look at. My question I had for you is, do you anticipate that the committee over time may expand its membership?
I apologize. I should explain it, yes. This is merely a, these three people are only for a couple months. This is not designed to be the full on what, I'm sorry, I should have said that. So part of talking to people in the community and outside vendors is really finding the right people to put at the table. And even though I tried my best to make sure I talked to everybody, and I probably have lists of about 25 names of people who are interested at this point, you know, I got various, to be really frank, I got various kind of responses. Some responses were, my life's too busy, I don't have time for that right now, to yes, I would be glad to participate. But I think it's important that we collectively kind of talk about who are the right people to put at the table. But no, I didn't put a number to how many be on it. It could be a 7-person, a 9-person. It could be a 15-member. Whatever the right number is, I think it will show itself as we go through the process. But part of it is making sure we have the right people at the table.
So can I just have a follow-up question? So would it be fair to characterize the initial membership as a group to kind of work with an outside consultant to figure out the best way of populating a larger committee down the road?
That's what I tried to say, and I said it poorly. So yes, that is exactly what I said.
Steering committee.
In essence, a steering committee, sure. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I suggest that we start right now, and as we have folks in the audience get their impressions of this?
Well, I think the committee's going to be able to, 3 members are going to be able to, as we work with a vendor and such, we put the things, we're going to be welcome to everyone and to the table, but I think this is really just kind of a structure tonight.
Could we just get a feel for what people think?
I think we're pretty good right now. This is really meant to be a council discussion, so that was the idea. I just don't want to get ahead of where we need to be. Everyone's input will be taken, absolutely, no question. Is there any thoughts? Is there any other ways to improve it, or is comfortable with this as a start?
So the committee meets with a facilitator, we just call it a facilitator at this point, try to figure out a model on how this could work going forward. Does the committee work with staff and then try to come up with I'm thinking resources here, costs associated with that, come back to the city council with a resolution saying we need to appropriate a certain amount of dollars for a certain period of time to do this. That way you look at what the deliverables are working with the facilitator, and the community sees that, and the community sees what the cost is going to be, and then you set it down for public hearing, and then you take a vote and appropriate the dollars.
Correct.
Just like you do, okay. Got it.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think this is a great start to achieve the goals that we probably will want to reach with regards to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. I think I was just wondering if one of the deliverables might be some sort of overall strategic plan, working in conjunction with a consultant, so that you could touch on all elements of city governance and see where improvements could be made throughout the city.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We include the word belonging, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging to the committee. It's important to be belonging.
Sure. Doesn't bother me. Does anybody else object to that?
I move to accept the report.
Second.
Okay. Does anybody object to putting belonging in?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Before we just move on, I just really want to make sure we kind of as a group. So the 3 of us will meet. We'll meet with vendors. We'll talk to people in the community. We'll talk about population of the committee. We'll kind of talk about kind of the structure of how it can work. We're going to talk about appropriations. Those are the type of things we're going to talk about. Everybody's comfortable with that? Okay. Council Brown.
Yes, could you explain the timeline? Because I think I heard that the appropriations wouldn't happen until budget season, so none of these things would take place until after the committee had appropriations to work with, to establish a contract with this outside vendor. Is that correct?
No, I don't see that. I sense they will be meeting within the next week or so and start the process off. I know that, for instance, one of the gentlemen from one of the organizations in New Hampshire, they're talking to their board this week, and, I think there are people interested in partnering with us. We are a community that is a really good size. I think we're a really good makeup for community, and we've had people who have actually shown interest in wanting to partner with us to do this. And there's some really good organizations, I think, statewide organizations who could come in here and I think enhance where we want to be and what we want to do. So in terms of the appropriation, that's the council decision. We'd have to do it in a budget, but I think that there's no need for us to, we're not going to sit, in my mind, we weren't going to sit and wait. We're going to start moving quickly.
I'm sorry, I'm just not clear. What does the committee is going to meet? Will the committee be making any actions, doing any listening sessions before budget?
I think the goal is to meet with an outside consultant to figure out how to do those conversations, where the conversations are held, what those type of things. To fill in the bones, if you will.
Okay, so but that we wouldn't, the vendor would be doing it pro bono, just filling in the bones before we get a contract? I
think so, yeah.
Do you have a vendor in mind that you were working with?
I think there are lots of good choices.
I'm just concerned that I'd like to see us act on this right away.
Well, I suspect that Council Champlin and Council Rice Hawkins will make sure that we do not sit on our hands. We can move as quickly as we can. Council Champlin.
Your Honor, is it fair to say that if we found, if we identified an entity or consultant to work with us, we had a budget, it would be fair to say that we could come back to this body for partial funding?
Absolutely.
To get it jump-started before we go into the May budget process and approve our budget in June?
Absolutely. I guess maybe one of the things I need to stress is that in terms of a rush to have the conversations, and I understand not wanting to wait and such, but I don't think this is all going to happen the next month or two. I'm talking about, in my mind, a 2-year commitment. Mm-hmm. This is a long-term change we want to make for sustainable changes, institutional changes. What I've heard back, for instance, and I will confess, I don't know where he got this statistic, but one gentleman shared with me, he said, after George Floyd, there was a tremendous response for creating positions and hiring and committees and all kinds of things. And this is his statistic, not mine, that 60% of a lot of those things that were established during that time period are no longer funded, they've been removed, they're not there anymore. So I think this can't be a knee-jerk reaction. These have to be truly sustainable changes if we're going to make permanent changes. That was redundant, I apologize, sorry. I think you knew what I meant though, maybe. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share?
I thought Councilor Rice Hawkins had her hand up.
Because I have an amendment to make.
I think that from my perspective at the table, we had hoped to continue to engage the national cities. I was sick that day, I apologize, but and they haven't been able to help us. They haven't been able to return to us. And we've sat in this moment of pause, waiting, and they still have so much work that they cannot return to us. You recall the vendor that we had worked with?
National League of Cities.
Thank you. League, I'm tired. The storm is coming. And the National League of Cities, we had hoped that they were going to return to us, and we've been waiting.
So I don't necessarily think we've been waiting, because what they focused on was actually internal city processes, less about us. In other words, I like to say the mirror was turned inward, and the administration has worked at length with the National League of Cities. In fact, I think they just completed their
Just last week.
final tasks. So the idea was now to turn the mirror outward and have the conversations in the community.
My misunderstanding. Thank you.
That's,
Thank you. I'll be supporting this initiative. I did have one minor change on the third bullet in goals. If we can just change Concord citizens to residents in recognition that.
That's a good point.
thank you, that was helpful. Anything else? Any other changes? Okay. Everybody generally understand where we're going? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that takes us to our comments, requests. Start over, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to bring the council's attention to information items 14 and 15. The Park and Recreation Department spring brochure is out. And information item number 15, that the summer employment with Parks and Recreation Department. They have a flyer. They're out there advertising. Please come and work. We got the lifeguards, laborers, and camp counselors. And it'll be a fun summer working for the Parks and Recreation Department. So we're out there hopefully getting the word out.
You should.
And have everybody in place for the summer. And happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone.
Okay. Question for Mayor Pro Tem? Could I have a question for Mayor Pro Tem? Do you have to be a high school student to apply for a job as a lifeguard?
You can apply.
That's what
We
I'm
can
at.
train you to be, yes.
Your turn.
Or camp counselor.
You have to pass
A
the
laborer,
test.
a
I
laborer.
already have my life-saving merit badge.
Yes.
The pools would be empty.
Please come.
Tall enough.
It's not just for a team, it's for anybody who would like to hang out at the pool, be a camp counselor, or anything else.
Thank you. So I have a question. Perhaps you should answer. Why do you have to be 16 to be a lifeguard? Is there some
My
employment?
understanding is you have to be 15, but my daughter was 15 last year and she was a lifeguard. I'm just going off personal experience.
Okay.
I don't know what the city has.
I might have read it incorrectly, but I thought on the brochure it said you had to be 16. Okay, Council 9, you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. This evening, the City Council set for a public hearing at its regular April meeting, a discussion on what will be a new solid waste contract for the City of Concord. I wanted to let the public know that on March 21st at 4:30 p.m. in this room, there will be a Solid Waste Advisory Committee meeting where the public is welcome to attend and hear a presentation about the contract. That'll be followed by a subsequent meeting on March 28th, again here in council chambers at 4:30 p.m., where the Solid Waste Advisory Committee will discuss and ultimately make its recommendation in the form of a report to go to the council in April. So there are two opportunities for public input. The primary one, though, will be on the 21st. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody over here?
Thank you. A couple things. First is April 1st, we're going to be having a public meeting related to the Beaver Meadow Building Committee. It's going to be at the community center. Details will be forthcoming with a formal notice, but I just wanted to make sure people knew that that was coming up. It's going to be in the morning. The second thing I wanted to do is, I'm sure most of you probably heard this week that the Concord School District lost one of their teachers. The Christian McAuliffe School lost a kindergarten teacher, Christine Holiday Rowe. Two of my kids had the pleasure of having her as a teacher. It's a big loss, and so I hope you will keep her family in your thoughts.
Counselor? Isn't there a GoFundMe?
There is a
help the family?
GoFundMe, yeah, and actually the services were supposed to be tomorrow, but due to the storm, it's been postponed to Thursday. It's at Fanoof down in Manchester, so if anybody's interested in going, I believe the wake starts at 2, and there'll be a formal service after that. So, thank you.
I would just like to draw attention to a celebrity that we have in our audience. Ms. Rhea Patel was just interviewed by New Hampshire Chronicle for her work with New American scholars. And she started by tutoring New Americans here in Concord at the library. It's fantastic. It's now branched to 3 or 4 cities in New Hampshire. 4 cities in New Hampshire, and Rhea herself is a sophomore? A junior now. So I would just, she was interviewed on New Hampshire Chronicle tonight and then came here. So I'm thrilled that you're here, and we can see it on New Hampshire Chronicle in about 3 weeks. So that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I would like to also draw attention to the Light Up Keach Park program that's happening on March 18th at the Citywide Community Center from 11:30 to 2, I believe. That should be really exciting and fun. And I also want to emphasize that lifeguards are our future heroes, and they have to go through quite a test in becoming a lifeguard. So they also will train with our fire department, which is pretty exciting. So I'd like to extend appreciation to everyone who's applying to be a lifeguard, because they really do bring the community together.
Thank you. Councilor Creditor.
Thank you, Your Honor. On March 26th, the City of Concord is going to be hosting the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the Main Street America. They are having their national conference down in Boston, and there is a group of preservationists and Main Street directors and board members that are coming up from Boston to tour Concord's award-winning Main Street, and especially to learn about the Tiger Grant. Mayor Boulay and Matt Walsh will be participating in a panel discussion. We'll be doing tours in the downtown. It's a huge honor for us to be able to be a part of that national conference, and also to put our Main Street on display for the people that are really all about preservation of downtown assets all across this country. So kudos to Concord for that.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what the mayor said earlier about the airport, I think that's extremely exciting. There's a lot going on in our city. There's housing coming in. We talk about the residents getting involved in the decision-making process. As some of you know, we had a community meeting on February 22nd at Beaver Meadow School. Several counselors attended. And as an outcome of that, the developer has decided to change their plans. That's the good news. The bad news is there will be fewer units. So we'll see what happens when they go through the planning process. But the residents were heard, the developers were heard by the residents, and vice versa, and they made changes. And last but not least, with Parks and Recreation, we now have an opening in Ward 2. Anyone out there from Ward 2 that would like to be a representative of Parks and Recreation, please get a hold of me. My contact information is on the website, and I'm happy to talk you through it. So thank you very much.
Okay, just to clarify, so there was included in the packet information items, a memo from David Gill dated March 2nd, 2020, informational update on summer employment. The department has started accepting applications for summer employment. In total, over 60 positions need to be filled. These positions are available to everyone 16 years old and over. Positions include lifeguards, water safety instructors, splash pad attendants, camp counselors, and maintenance staff for parks and cemetery divisions. So I'm assuming that if it's not correct, you'll correct this, and we'll get the word out.
Yeah, I'll find out in whether or not it's correct, and just have David send you guys in.
But there are some 15-year-olds who are interested in being lifeguards. That's why they were questioning, because they looked at the brochure and the
Doesn't say
online,
anything.
and then this came out.
Yeah.
So,
Rana?
yes.
Question for the city manager. Does the sign-on stay-on bonus that we approved last month, does that apply to these jobs, these seasonal jobs? And what is that bonus?
If you want to go on, I'll go look it up and come back. I don't, because we have different different items for each.
That's all right. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Okay.
put you on the spot.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ms. Manager, do you have anything?
Yes, just, you were interested, City Council's interested in working to look at potential for doing a solar array on the landfill, so that RFP went out Friday. So I'll be back to report to you. I'll come to the council and after we've gone through the analysis of those, we'll bring something back to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Your Honor,
That's great.
Since we've talked so much about the lifeguards, I just wanted to add that the posted pay is $15 to $17 per hour.
Except for splash pad, which is $13.50.
I said lifeguard.
Yes, you did. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Motion made second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Have a great evening.